Leanne Tran, psychologist who's worked with families whose kids don't fit the mould for almost 20 years. I've worked with children for decades, but I know parents are the real change makers when it comes to their kids. Having 3 kids of my own means I know it's not easy. Parent Like a Psychologist is all about simplifying how you support your kids with psychology information filtered through years of experience to take you from overwhelmed to confident. Come on in. So what do you think, from your experience and knowledge, what are employers looking for in young people?
A positive attitude.
Okay.
Is first and foremost. They don't want you to have any skills because they'll give them to you.
Yeah.
They'll give you all the skills, but they can't teach you the positive attitude.
Mm-hmm.
So I have kids that will be like, what's in it for me? And I said, if you ever have that, what's in it for me, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
You have a kid that's willing to learn, that says, I'm here, let's go. What else can you give me? An employer would go mental for that.
Yeah. Yep.
They want a young person to do research before an interview.
Okay.
And I'll say to a young person, how do I do that? And they're like, why would I bother doing that? Like, it's classic.
Yeah.
I get the same thing all the time. I said, because if you're attached to your phone 24/7, let's use it for good.
Yeah.
Let's look up the company and find out for 5 minutes what they do, what their background story is. They might have run a cool event and you get to go, they say, what do you know about us?
Yep.
And you have something ready and go, I know you're a family business. I know that you've just gone into these different areas. I know that you've built this from the ground up, and I'd love to be a part of the volunteer that how you go into Vinnie's or you help different charities. I'd love to be a part of that.
Yeah.
Kids don't get it. And I'm like, if you don't and the next person does, you're not going to get a job.
Yeah, right. I think that's so true because what you were saying just resonated so much with me as a business owner. I was like, oh my goodness, if someone said that, because if big corporations are different, but as a manager or a business owner, if you take pride in what you do, it's important to you. And so feeling like another person values it
100%.
is, already a couple of steps in the right direction.
And it takes 10 minutes, right? So I could look up and people will tell you who's going to interview you. I'd go straight to LinkedIn. And I'd be finding those people. So I had a kid go for Novotel, the hotel chain.
Okay.
And we're having a look at that. And I said, let's have a look who's interviewing you. What we found is that they both went to the same school, high school.
Oh, awesome.
The guy was the CEO. And I said, there you go. There's your in. There's your small talk.
Yep.
So straight away, this girl's gone in and said, we went to the same high school.
Yeah.
And he's like, how do you know that? She's like, I looked you up on LinkedIn. So, and I said, it doesn't mean that you're a stalker. It just means you've done your research, right?
Yep.
And then they spent the next 25 minutes talking about who was still there at the school.
Yeah.
And then she added in about how at Easter time, they have a rink, an ice skating rink. And I'd love to do that. And my niece and nephew loved it. And had nothing to talk about the skills that she was going to add because he knew he could teach that. It was that personality he needed.
Yep.
So it's just so many little things that kids can do.
Yeah.
It's not about, I don't have the skills. It's like, I don't have the skills yet.
Yeah.
It's just the positive attitude that they want.
Yep. And that's another thing I think too, is sometimes kids feel like holds them back that they don't have the skills yet. And it's surprising how much they think about that. And I'm thinking of a story for me with my teenager where I was saying, we're in the position, I guess, we can offer them jobs because we have a business, and said, why don't you do that? My husband's a pediatrician, so it was in his business. And he was like, I don't know anything about medicine. I was like, you dill, we're not going to get you to do that. But they don't know how the world works. They don't know that, someone answers the phones there where you are. Oh, that's what you meant,
Yeah, like we have a lot of gift packs that get given to students. So my kids in the holidays spent their time packing work packs. So it comes down to warehousing. So they have to be able to sort stuff, they have to label it, they have to pack it, they have to be able to send it off. So all these skills, and same thing, calling up people. So I said,
Yeah.
a lot of kids have skills that they don't realize that they have.
Yeah.
And I ask in my workshops, I said, who looks after siblings? And kids will put their
Yeah.
hand up and I go, that's responsibility.
Yep. I think,
Like,
yeah, I love
think,
that.
yeah. And things that, like, have you ever looked after pets?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever helped out at the canteen, at the football grounds? Have you
Yeah.
helped volunteer? Like all these skills that they have, even home chores. Please, parents, make them do home chores. Employers like that.
Yeah.
They need all these skills, right? And like, we don't need to pay them. It's called love jobs. I tell
Yeah.
my kids, but all these basic skills that they don't think that they have. My son ended up a job with McDonald's, and he said to me, I don't want to tell you this, Mum. He said, but I'm really glad you've made me do the bins and do
Yeah.
basic stuff. He said, because a lot of kids don't know how to even tie up a garbage bag and put it out because they don't do any
Yeah.
jobs at home.
Yeah.
So it's so valuable what they can already do at home that
Yep.
they don't need, obviously, to be a pediatrician.
Yeah.
They've got all these other cool things that they can add to a workforce.
Yeah. I think I heard you talk about that. Maybe it was on Instagram on another podcast too. And I think it's so important that they have competency, like they feel competent if they can do those things. And it teaches kids they've got the capacity to learn stuff because they've learned how to sweep the house or how to
Yeah.
take out the rubbish. And so then they can, you know, learn more things from
Mate,
an employer.
I've had employers who sent a boy back because he'd never seen a stepladder before and didn't know how to use one.
Right.
I've
Yep.
had an employer say to me, this kid doesn't know how to use a broom.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
all this thing, we're just like, how shameful. But at the same time, it makes you go, do my kids know how to do that? Like
Yeah.
washing and wiping up if you have a dishwasher. So many
Yep.
kids don't like it's all these things that we used to do as kids that we're not forcing our kids to do because
Yeah.
we take up that slack. They're
Yep.
not building employability skills.
Yeah, and it probably comes from a place, like you mentioned at the beginning, that we're all time poor and it's easier to do it yourself. But
Especially they do a bad job.
yeah, yeah. But I think too, like having kids learn to try things and master skills from a young age really helps because then it's not like when they get to teenage years and then you're saying, okay, come on, you can't do anything. Let's teach you everything.
Yeah.
Um,
And it
yeah,
gets overwhelming. And I've had parents say that they've had to, at the last minute try to show their kids how to change bins and order things and speak to people. So I've had year 12 kids that have never spoken to an employer. And
mm,
and if you ask a kid to call somebody, you watch them crawl into a hole and they're like, I'd rather die
yeah,
because
yeah.
they text to do everything. My kids will
That's
text
true.
me and I'll call and they'll be like, why are you calling me? They'll text
Yeah,
that. They're not
yeah,
used to phone calls. So
that's
the
true.
more you
Yeah,
get them to do, little kids going and buying stuff with a card, all these
yep,
tiny little things that will build up themselves as not only as a person, but as a great future partner for somebody to,
yeah,
to wash stuff, to clean, to be able to look after their own environment. We're only creating better humans, right?
yeah.
And making them employable as well.
So it sounds like, in summary, then what employers are looking for is most of all an attitude, positive attitude, which is about a willingness to contribute and learn, and not so much skills, but maybe just evidence that they've got the capacity to learn stuff and practically be able to help out.
Yeah, totally. Everything else is teachable, and employers want you to transfer these. And we talk to kids about transferable skills. So
Hmm.
they're not lost on one industry. They're people skills, they're communication skills, they're all these skills that are transferable to every industry. So
Yeah,
they're going to put your young person ahead of the pack because a lot of them are choosing not to do anything. And
yeah,
especially, you would have seen that with COVID.
hmm,
It just brought the introverts, unfortunately, it just puts them in a really awkward position and they opt out and they choose
yeah,
even not my excursions or their incursions, they're at school. And I'll have kids that their parents have said, yes, I want them to go. And they'd rather sit in a subject they hate than come and do something different. And even
Mm-hmm.
though they're getting free makeup, all the rest of it, I have to try and
Yeah.
lure them in. It's getting them out of their comfort zone is the hardest thing.
Yeah. Yep. And the best way to do that is small steps, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Expose them to as much as possible. Put them in if your school runs Duke of Ed, and you have to force them. And sometimes we have to be cruel to be kind, but we know that they're going to be better for it and force them to do little activities here and there and just go, I've booked you in for this art class because you're so great at art. And I'm like, I don't
Mhm.
know anyone. That's
Yeah.
okay. You'll probably meet a friend. And then they
Yeah.
might get the new best friend out of it and they'll go, that was actually good, mum. It wasn't that
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah. Yep. I love that. And so you have a few free resources for parents, and one I was showing you on my wall, how to make your teen employable.
Yeah.
Um, and another one about the 5 things they're not telling you.
Yeah. So when you have a young person go for a job, and a lot of parents say to me, I'm just so frustrated. They're a great kid. They just need an employer to give them a go, but the kids aren't moving. Sometimes there's a reason behind that why they're not moving.
Mm,
It's, there'll be things they're not telling you. And, one of the first ones is rejection.
right.
So there's all these little ways that I've got on there about the 5 things that they're not telling you, and they won't tell you, but the things that you and how to combat it. So I'm not going to do one of those things where you go, you have to pay $29.95 to find out the answer. I'm not interested
Yeah.
in that. So I've got, the 5 things they're not telling you, and then the how to move them forward on each step as well. So it's a
Yeah.
two-page download. And
Yep.
then I've got a link on there for parents into our free Facebook group.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'll just come in and talk there about stuff that you need to know, like we just spoke about today about work experience, about how times have changed. I'm going to have all employers in there talking to you about what they're after in there, but what they're looking for in a young person, and whatever else I can put in there, I will.
Yep. I think that's amazing, and I've learned a bit from it and listening to you and your content as well. And I think for me, work experience has been a big learning. And but also some of the resources too. I think, like you, if it's even if it's similar to what I might have thought, it's coming from a different place. I've said, Sharna is actually a professional in this. And then
Oh,
my,
yeah.
yeah, my kids have been like, oh, really? And so I was telling them about how you mentioned the work experience too, and were saying maybe they would be better off in grade 9 to take a week to do that and work out what they want to do. And
Yep.
I said, you've been a teacher for 20 years
Yep.
and think that probably they'd get more out of that than they would for a week at school. My 13-year-old said, yep, she's probably.
Yeah, like, and unfortunately, that's the sad state of education at the moment. My daughter did a week at the Easter show, and where
Oh, wow.
most you'd go, wow, a week at the Easter show, but she went into agriculture, and their
Yeah,
school. She met so many people, and she's like, I've just joined up for the Young Agriculture Society, and I met all these schools, and she was like Mrs. Chatty when she come home, and now she wants
yeah,
to go into agriculture. And I
yep,
just went, if I forced her to go to school, she would have missed out, right?
yeah,
And schools aren't what they used to be. There's a lot of socially, they're not great. Social media has made
mm,
them not fun. So where we had, issues with somebody and left the school, and our parents told us to calm down, and we sort of thought about it. We went back to the school the next day. They were
yeah,
resolved, where now it doesn't end. So
yeah,
they're not great places for people, to be honest, for majority of the kids now. So if you could fill them with as many experiences as you can, but just ticking the boxes, do it. Highly
yeah,
encouraged to do as many, because that way, come year 12 or when
yep,
they decide to leave, they're like, you know what? That's going to be my first step.
yeah. I think that's great advice. And there's lots of weeks too for some kids I know are feeling like very unsure about taking time off school because they're very rule conscious. And there's perfect opportunity at the end of both semesters where there's all the tests and grades have been done and there's weeks of not much. And those are perfect opportunities to do something different.
Yeah. And you're going to get so many more skills by being in the workforce for a week, just by shadowing people. You're going to learn rather than sitting there. They put another DVD on because the marks have already been in. And it happens, like it's starting to taper off now and they've still got 2 weeks left.
Mm.
So it happens all the time. So
Yep.
just work out when your child's assessments are. And a lot of
Yeah.
school have assessment schedules, and you can
Yep.
just ask the school, the year advisors, for one of those. I've got mine, so I just know when my daughter's exams are and her assessments,
Mm.
and then we work around that. So it's just as many exposures to everything as possible is never going to be a bad thing.
Yep. And that's, yeah. So that for me personally has been a learning and something that's changed what I do and the conversations I have with my kids about this. So thank you.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
and I'm sure that lots of parents listening will be able to have those same kind of, changes in perspective and different conversations with their kids as well.
Yeah, definitely. And reach out to me on Instagram. I'd love to talk to any parents. I talk to kids all the time. And if there's, a way you go, how did I start these conversations? I've got all little cards. I'll email you just to all these little cards you can pull up. And I tried them on my own kids. And we actually had really quite a funny, interesting insight into how they think. And I also have the questions for myself too. So the kids were like, what's the best person or the best workplace you were at, mum? And so I gave them the prompts. So we had these really cool conversations without knowing it. And it was in
Yeah.
more of a, and there's silly cards in there and a bit of fun, but it sort of started those conversations. But yeah, reach out on Facebook. I'd love to talk to parents as much as I can to help them out because, yeah, schools are busy and we're
Yeah.
not getting the buy-in that we're used to as parents.
Yeah. And so we talked a bit about the Job Ready Academy, and you were saying it's got some information in there about things like what to wear, how to do things like cover letters and that kind of stuff. Is there anything that we haven't talked about today that's also covered in there?
Oh, gee, there's everything. I even have scenarios. Kids like to watch little YouTube clips and stuff like that. So I hired some actors, and we've got these
Awesome.
scripts about kids. They're like housemates that live together, and one was really conscious, and we need to get ready for work, and one was a rule follower, and the other one was just like, who cares? We can rock up in anything. And that scenario sort of plays out over a couple of videos, and I typically I didn't make it cringy because so much stuff is cringy, right? So
Yeah.
it's actually high schoolers, a local high school have it, and they're just like, this is good. So
Yeah.
there's stuff in there. There's makeup looks, there's barbering, or the current looks that kids are going for, how to make it appropriate for the workforce.
Mm-hmm.
But when we talked about work experience, there's a whole section course in there about work experience, and it's about how to contact people, how to get
Yeah.
there, how to end the work experience week, how to write an email to say thank you or write it on a card. I give them everything in there, and there's all downloads as well. So if and there's little magazines in there, like old school magazines. If people are looking on at your video, we have old
Mm.
school magazines. So I have stuff for kids that are in support units as well that we
Oh,
have
brilliant.
because kids like to learn differently. So I
Yeah.
have stuff that's, about the old school magazines, hygiene for work and a lot of
Yeah.
things that parents say that their kids need. We
Yep.
have all those covered as well. So I can post out a magazine there on our
Awesome.
website and everything as well. So we've got you covered from all angles, but yeah, we'd love to connect and just reach out. We're here to help.
Yeah. That sounds fantastic. I can just only imagine how comprehensive it is with 50 lessons in there. But it sounds like it's something that kids would really engage with. And yeah.
Yeah, and they can download it off on their phone too, because kids like to learn off their phone. So I teach them
Yeah.
how to do that. They can hop in and have it on an app, and
Yep.
straight off their phone and put their and like there's job interview questions in there and answers. So
Okay.
I've had a boy use it who went and got a job with Woolworths, and he sat on the bus and listened to me on the way in just to calm himself down. And he
Yep.
said he listened to my job interview questions and what they're answering as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was really cool. And I was like, I love that sort of feedback. So kids have used it, they've gotten jobs out of it, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Because I remember you saying, I will wrap up in a second, but because I feel like we could talk all day.
Yeah, I know, right? I do.
Yeah. Um, but one thing you mentioned, I think I heard in an interview where you were talking with somebody else, is how to try to let your kids take the lead on this stuff as well.
Yeah, definitely. I like to call it be second in charge. Be second in
Right.
charge. Too often, as parents, like you said, even with the chores at home, we take
Yeah.
over because you know what I asked 20 times to get it done. It's easier to do it myself.
Yeah.
But they need these skills and doing doing, going for a job, doing a cover letter has to come from them because as a parent, it's easy for us to go, you know what, I'll just write it for you. And then I get annoyed. I've done it with my son. I get annoyed. He's going to sit on the lounge and he's on his phone. I'm like, excuse me, but I
Yeah.
need to let them fail. I need
Hmm.
him to start and do stuff himself because it's only then that he learns because I can't pick up the pieces. We can't be there 24/7.
Yeah.
So if you're letting them, you take a back seat and you be the guide. And we plant seeds as parents, we do it all the time. And we can do that in the car and go, did you speak to the careers advisor about work experience yet?
Hmm.
And you know what? If they miss it and everyone else goes out and they miss it, let them miss it.
Yeah.
They need to, as much as it's going to kill you as a mum or a parent, you don't want them to miss out. They have to in order to move forward. So they go, oh, yeah, I didn't like it when everyone went to work experience and I had to go to school. That
Yeah.
sucked. I need to sort something out. So it's not until they have to, because we make life, we don't want them to, we don't want them to have any sort of obstacles. We want life to be easy, but
Yeah.
we're enabling these kids.
Mm.
We're enabling them to go into the workforce. And then when it does, hit the fan, we can't always pick them up. So we
Yeah.
need to give them these skills. We need to step back and go, well, you know what? Like my daughter, you didn't bring the excursion note home. You're not going. That's your problem. I'm not
Yeah.
calling up the school and organizing it because you've had about 3 weeks to do it.
Yeah.
So these little life lessons that you can do along the way will make
Yeah.
them a better employee as well.
Yeah. It sounds like that's the type of thing that's going to get them to be that person in the video you were talking about that's actually saying, no, come on, we got to get ready properly to go to work. It's
Yeah,
got to be
that's
up
right.
to them. Yeah.
Yeah, and that guy in the video didn't get the job. So it's all these sort of subtle hints along the way that, he decided to turn up in jeans and a t-shirt and just when it's hospitality, who cares?
Yeah.
So he didn't get the job and it was just, he sat there gaming instead. So it's all these little messages along the lines that kids might go, oh, that's kind of relatable. But it's
Yep.
not, it's all about timing. When it works for them, that's when they'll sort of switch on.
Yeah. It sounds really fantastic. I'm actually excited to have another look at it now because I think that could be a great thing for my two teenagers to do in the school holidays.
Yeah, and we've got a thing coming out in all the flyers. It's, it says to parents, are you sick of funding your kids' school holidays because they're expensive?
Yeah.
Activities add up. They go to the
Yep.
shops. They go to the shops. They've done an online order. They're going to an action park. They're going to the movies. It's just like
Yeah.
it's just handout after handout,
Yeah.
and they don't get it until it's their own money, and then they're very
Yes.
frugal, and you're like, oh, now it's
Yep.
your money.
Yep.
So it gives them,
Exactly.
like we say, in the background, it says skills that pay the bills. I say give
Yeah.
them the skills to pay their own bills.
Yep. Absolutely. I
Yeah.
can attest for that. When they're earning their own money, they're far more conscious of how much everything costs.
Yes. Even down to body wash. And my son, used to pour it down the drain. And I'm like,
Yeah.
mate, now you're going to buy your own. He's like, why should I spend $7? I said, oh, it's all right for me too. So all these little life lessons along there, having
Yeah.
their own money is great.
Yep. Well, oh, so many exciting kind of inspirations I've had today. And I genuinely think it will really help in my family and I'm sure in lots of other families as well, because they are the skills that kids need to learn. And it's helpful to have it from other people, but also the fact that you're a teacher and you've got this great natural connection with kids means that it's, far more likely that they'll take it in and
Yeah.
learn from it, but also that parents can as well.
Yeah, please do. So I'm on Instagram as Sharna Dawson, and then I'm on Facebook as well. But and that's for the parents. But then for the kids, if your kids are on TikTok,
Oh,
as sad as
awesome.
that sounds, I sound like a 45-year-old on TikTok. I'm called I go under the People's Careers Advisor. So it's not my name. So my kids like, please don't put your name to it.
That's funny.
But I do stuff for year 11s and year 12s, and we talk about subjects and everything like that. And one of the
Yeah.
thing had 41,000 views. So
Yeah.
the kids want to know stuff, but they don't want to
Yeah.
particularly ask, but they feel safe through a social media platform under a different
Yes.
username, and they'll message me, and that's how I do all the videos. So yeah.
Awesome. That's fantastic, because I think kids connecting with you too would be awesome. So yeah, well done, braving TikTok.
I know, right? I'm not
Yeah.
going to do any lame dances. I don't do that. I definitely
No.
don't, because my kids would like disown me. But yeah, and something I'd never do. But yeah, it's just another platform that I can reach out to kids and help them. And there's been so many, which is really cool.
Yeah. That's amazing. I can feel the passion that you have coming through the video call here, so I'm sure they can as well. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been amazing. And all of the information that you've referenced we'll have in the notes from the episode so people can find you really easily.
Thank you. And thanks to all the parents, wherever you're listening, whether it's in the car, you got a kid captured in there or you don't, I really appreciate you spending your time to listen to Leanne's podcast. It's been awesome.
Excellent. Thanks again.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Parent Like a Psychologist. If you found it helpful, please share on Instagram so other parents can benefit too, and tag me at Leanne Tran Psychology so that I can say a big thank you. Head over to leannetran.com.au to join the village for bite-sized psychology tips straight to your inbox. I really hope this podcast has brought a new perspective and you a step closer towards a calm parent and a thriving child. Have a delightful day.